Hello, welcome to Women's Financial Empowerment Group. I'm your host, Ruth Agbeloso. Thank you so much for visiting my channel. If this is your first time, please go ahead and subscribe, like this video, and share it with your friends. And if you've been here before, please go ahead and like, share, do all those wonderful things. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. On this channel, we discuss all things money, making money, saving money, investing money, and more. So you're going to want to come back over and over to hear what I have in store for you. If you want to hear more about me and what I do, stay with me to the end of the video and I will share that information with you. In today's video, I have a special guest and she'll be talking about house hacking with children. This guest, her name is Jen Narciso, and she is the founder of Investor Momma and the host of Investor Momma podcast. She believes anyone can get out of debt and achieve financial independence by getting educated, changing his or her habits, and changing their money beliefs. Her goal is to help as many moms and families as she can with their money journey so they can set an example for the next generation. Help me welcome Jen Narciso. Hi, Jen. Welcome.
Ruth, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited and so humbled. Thank you for inviting me to your channel. I can't wait to chat.
You're welcome. It's so great to have you on. When I thought about having you on, I was just so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, finally, we're going to get together. It's been in the works for so long.
I know.
And I'm like, we're both busy mamas. And so we finally got it done. So before we get into today's topic, can you tell my viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a mom of two. It's been a crazy journey. I have young little ones. One is almost 6, one is almost 3, which is crazy to think about. And I'm a real estate agent full-time now. And I started the Investor Momma podcast about a year and a half ago. It's been a crazy, awesome journey. And I just love talking to amazing people like yourself and having fun money conversations and hoping to educate others and maybe inspire someone to take some action and get their financial house in order.
Awesome. So what led you to want to start that podcast?
So I'll make a long story short, but in 2018, we had lost our son at birth. I got pregnant again then in 2019, and I just needed a distraction to keep my head clear. And so I'd always loved money and real estate and all the things related. And I wanted to do something for him, for his memory. And so I figured, let's just do podcast. I love the podcast. I love listening to podcasts. Let's just try it. And that's kind of how it all started. And it's been an amazing journey since. And, you know, we have our son now too. And so everything, as much as it was hard, it's all been a blessing. I like to at least think of it in that way. So
yes, I love that idea of using your pain and turning it into something positive. So kudos to you for doing that and for
thank you.
having, going through all those episodes. I was looking through your podcast, listening and just seeing all the people that you've interviewed, and it's amazing. So congratulations to you for sticking with it and just delivering excellent content. I definitely love your show.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's I as much as I feel like the guests have been really great. It's just fun having money conversations, especially as women. We don't have them so often, and it's hard to find, especially other moms. And when you're talking about money or, whatever it is, it's like we need to have these conversations, but there's also nuance then once you become a mom, I find, at least. So,
oh, yes,
it's yeah.
Definitely. I work with moms myself, so I know it's different. It's a little different when it comes to finances and being a mom. It's a different realm. When it comes to finances,
it's different decision-making thought process, different priorities, different goals, different values, and then different strategies, because what you may have been able to have done a couple of years ago, that's out the window now. When you have kids, especially young ones, it's not so easy. So
thank you so much for sharing about what you do, and I'm excited to get into the topic. So let's go ahead. So what are we talking about today? I'll let you introduce the topic.
So we're talking about one of my favorite things, which is house hacking. And essentially what house hacking is you buy a duplex or 2-family, 3-family, or 4-family if you can find one. It's very hard these days, but if you can, and you live in one unit or and rent out the rest. And you can also do this with a single family where you rent out by the room or something like that. But it's a great way. For me, real estate is, I think, one of the most powerful tools to amplify your wealth and to amplify your wealth quickly, because you can use other people's money. But a lot of people are afraid of real estate. It can be very intimidating and they don't know where to start and what to do, or they may think they need a lot of capital. And with the beauty of house hacking is that you can start small, see if you like it, kind of get your feet wet without, like, to me, it's the most or the least risk real strategy in real estate to at least try it and see before you start going with, like, more advanced strategies and buying. And the other thing I will say too is that, so a lot of people think house hacking is for like typically young males has been the trend in the industry of doing house hacking. And I want to share that I think house hacking is amazing, and that even moms, like as families, we can do it. And I actually encourage families to house hack, especially I know people are like, I don't want to live with like strangers, or I don't want people near me, but there's just so many benefits and we can go through them. But there's so many benefits to house hacking, and even more so, I believe personally, with kids.
So let's freeze frame that right there. The topic is house hacking with children. Why? Why with children? Why would you recommend someone house hack with children?
So as I kind of said before, I think that house hacking allows a lot of benefits. So one is affordability. We started house hacking back in 2013. I want to say we did our first hack. I wish I knew then or now what I knew then, because we would have bought like 30 houses, but we started with one. When you house hack, usually if you typically buy an investment property, you might need 20-25% down. And that can be very intimidating for someone to save that much money, especially
definitely
in today's market. Like if you're buying a $400,000 investment property, that could be 80K plus closing costs. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. But when you're buying a house hacking, because you're living in it, you get a lot of loan options that are much more favorable to home ownership. So you can put down 3.5%, 5%, 10% on an investment property. With the affordability, that allows you access to better schools. Because let's say you were going to buy a single family in like a really great neighborhood, you're the only one paying the mortgage. But when you're house hacking and you want to get into a great area, this is what we did. It allowed us, there's no way we could have afforded to live in the towns we had lived in. But because we had someone helping with our mortgage, it then allowed us to get into better school districts. I mean, at the time, our kids were young and we weren't even thinking about schools, but it was always on our radar. Like, could we live here eventually with kids if we had to? So that's like the first thing. Because you don't have to save up as much, you can also afford a little bit more, again, because you're going to have somebody, essentially, they may not be paying all of your mortgage, but they'll definitely be helping them versus if it's just you on your own and your family paying on it. The second thing with house hacking, it allows flexibility. It allows you to try an area with your family without committing. So with a lot of the loan products, I'm not a lender, so you should talk to a lender about this, but usually you have to live in the house for at least a year to make it your primary residence, and then you can move out. So let's say you just wanted to get into investing, but again, you didn't want to save like the traditional, 20% down or whatever. If you house hack in it, though, you can at least try a neighborhood out. It's not like you have to stay there forever, but you can always move out. But now you're having an asset versus if you were to just rent somewhere and try it out. Or if you were to buy your actual single family house and then you don't like it, then you have to like sell it and all that process. Versus my whole thing is if you can get into a good area and you factor in, let's say, vacancy costs, some capital expenses every month, and your maintenance fees, and you make zero money once you move out, to me, that's still a huge asset because you're putting so little down. Your cash on cash return will be very high. And so it gives you the ability now then to be flexible on if you want to stay or leave. So I don't want you to buy a bad deal, like buy something where you have to live necessarily forever, because if you move out, you're negative. But you don't need to make a lot of money either on the property. As long as you net zero between appreciation, depreciation, the tax benefits, the loan pay down, you're going to get so many perks with real estate as it is that it just, again, it opens up just a lot more doors for you and for your family. So that's the second thing. The third thing, you may laugh, but it's the thing that when you buy a single family, typically you're stuck with your neighbors. Like who you live with is who you live with next door to. But when you house hack, and if you have tenants, you can have stricter tenant screening. Now, I'm not saying do anything that's like illegal and, discriminate against people. But first of all, you can test your screening process. You can implement a screening process. So again, thinking like all the stuff that you have to deal with real estate if you were investing, but because you're on site on the property, it makes it easier because you're there. Like
Okay.
you get to pick. And also too, like if you decide you don't want to live near someone, it's a little bit easier to justify. And again, every state has different laws and all this stuff. So like make sure you again don't discriminate. But if you have two like really good candidates, you could kind of pick if you want to, maybe you want someone who has kids that lives near you. You can try to attract who you'd want as a neighbor.
Okay.
Which is great. Like, so
That
like
makes
if you're a
sense.
family and you want to have like, yeah, you want your kids to have people to play with, you could kind of like try to, again, you can't discriminate and there's so many laws. So I have to be like very careful on how I'm saying this, but because you're living there, you'll be able to kind of see from the applicant pool who you'd really want to live, like who you'd want as your neighbor, versus just having, you're moving next door to someone and then whoever lived there for the past however many years, that's your automatic neighbor, if that makes sense.
I think that would be one of my concerns, especially as a mom, thinking about like who's going to be around my children, who's going to be around me.
Exactly. Yeah.
As a woman, I want to make sure that we're safe. So that would definitely be a concern for me.
And that's why you would screen them. So versus
Right.
living next to someone, if you think about it, when you move into a house, you don't know who's near your kids either. But at
Right.
least now you can like have some control over who you pick. Personally, this is my personal thing. I would not house hack a single family with my kids. I wouldn't
Okay.
want someone living in my house. But if I had a duplex or triplex, I would not mind having someone on another wall. I grew up where we a shared wall with someone, just that was the style house back then. So to me, that's
Okay.
not a big deal. So to have someone nearby, I don't know. It's just, what's the difference if they live 10 feet away across or they live like 2 feet away if you're going in different entrances and all that kind of stuff. And again,
Okay.
you have your tenant screening processes. So you make sure you have strong ones and you do good, vetting of people. But yeah, but that gives you also like more control, flexibility. And another great reason that I love personally is education. You are teaching your kids hands-on how to invest in real estate. They are witnessing it. Like when we house hacked with our daughter, our son was too little. I mean, even she was 3 at the time, but she saw what we were doing. She saw that property we were buying. She saw what we were talking about. She may not have understood it, but like she even now knows that we, buy houses and we make them nicer for people. They pay us to live there, and she like meets our tenants. We bring her along and we explain things and how it works. So she's
Hmm.
getting the best education that I could ever provide for her,
I love
uh
that.
living there. And even if we were to invest, let's say, in another property, yeah, she could come along, but it's very different when you're there and you're seeing the tangible object for your kids, to know that like we bought this house, this is for our future, these people are helping us so that we can now put our money elsewhere. Like we had all these conversations. Again, she was
Great.
3 at the time now, but like to me it's just having all these open conversations. Some things will stick, some things won't, but it was normalizing the conversation and then having her see it to like
I love
really like
that.
feel and touch it. So
Yeah,
that's
I
like
love
the
that.
fourth reason why I love, yeah, house hacking can be great. And then the fifth reason, I touched on this in the very beginning, but I think real estate is the greatest wealth building tool you can have because of I used to work for an attorney and he used to joke that he called them his ladies. So it was leverage, appreciation, depreciation, income, equity. I think the S was like savings or something. But like you get all that value from owning. And so you're setting yourselves up because housing is one of the most expensive costs we have. But if you
Oh
can
yeah.
significantly reduce it, now you're also teaching your kids, not like you're setting yourself up so you don't have to eventually be a burden to your kids later on
Yeah.
down the road. Because I'm all about to get your own financial house in order so that even if you don't save for your kids' college, like if you can only pick one thing to do, at least get yourself right so that you're not a burden on them in the future.
Exactly.
So yeah, and so I think that real estate allows for all these things, and that's why I'm just such a pro believer for house hacking. And for every reason that someone can argue no, I could say, okay, but here's really why you should,
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those benefits because I was thinking about just all of the things that people wonder about house hacking, like the hows, the whens, the whys, all of that stuff. So I feel like you covered a lot of that in your explanation of the benefits. I was wondering about, what are some of the challenges of house hacking? Like, do you have any warnings or cautionary messages for my viewers who are
Yeah.
interested?
Sure, it's a great question. So one thing is, it is a much harder now to find a house hack because a lot of people are starting to do it. So you have to get creative with it and just finding a property that makes sense. Because again, I don't want you to buy a property where if you moved out, you're negative cash flow, like significantly. If you're maybe losing $100 a month when you move out, if you're in a very like hot market that's appreciating a lot, I could make the argument that even if you're losing $100 a month, it may not be bad. Again, after you factor vacancy, like, and you have your reserves, you should always, if any investment property, you should always have a reserve. You should always make sure you factor in for vacancy and for, maintenance and capex, what that number looks like for you. That's up to you. I can tell you, me personally, we have $10,000 in reserves per property just because I just want to know that we have it, but I still also factor in monthly. Like if we had one vacancy for the year, could we cover that, too?
Mhm.
And then, maintenance and capex, whatever you feel comfortable with. So before we even would buy a house, I would save up enough for the down payment, the closing costs, and then the reserve. That to me, that's just like makes me feel better.
That
So,
makes sense. Yeah.
and that's like one of the things, like challenges could be because you're new at this. Something's going to always go wrong, so that's why you want to reserve for sure. But that, again, that could be with any real estate project you would do. So that's like one, is to make sure you have a strong reserve. The second thing is, listen, uh tenant screening is really important. You really got, I've caught people in like crazy lies that made up W2s. So you really
Wow.
have to do your due diligence, like call the numbers they give you, like really make sure you do the background checks, do the credit report, uh call their employers, look, check their employers on, like I would do like 2 to 3 levels deep and not take things at face value. I've
Okay.
actually found people who made up companies that didn't actually exist.
Wow.
When I went to their homepage, it looked like it was like shady, and then I'm like, something's off. So if you feel a red flag, keep the like that red flag. And if you really also don't want to deal with tenants, a great thing too, like let's say you're nervous, you really are nervous about living with your kids on the property. You can also just pretend you're a tenant and say that you're a property manager for the owner.
Oh,
And
okay.
that, or you know what I mean, like that you're a property manager for the owner and you're just helping them out. You can also say, like, you could also appoint someone to be their direct contact. So if you
Okay.
wanted to hire a property manager, someone like maybe not a full on property manager, but maybe you could just pay someone as a point of contact that if they have an issue, they call them, or that they pay
Okay.
the rent to them directly so that they don't really know that you own the house. You can kind of do things like that if you're really concerned. But those are like the biggest things I would say, just to kind of be cautious of.
Okay. I wanted to go back to the screening process. Now, do
Sure.
you ever use a company to do screening, or do you take care of the screening process yourself?
So yeah, it's great. I used to use Cozy. They used to do the background checks and stuff for me, but Cozy doesn't exist anymore. But I know I use on apartments.com when I would do my listings. They have background checks and credit reports that they run, and then the potential tenant or the applicant pays for it. I think it's like $50 or something for them to get. Also, if you're using a real estate agent, which is every state has different, who pays for the agent and all that kind of stuff. But agents will have access to systems that can run background checks on people too. And then you can have your application process. I got all my forms from Bigger Pockets. They have like great leases. I still had an attorney review our lease anyway, but I got like the template from Bigger Pockets and I got their application. You want to make sure everything is consistent. So you don't want to start playing favorites. So every applicant should go through the exact same process. And you
Right.
should have criteria of what. So if you're not going to take like one of our criteria is we won't take anyone who's been evicted before.
Okay.
So that's just something we say, and that's like in our, so it's very clear. So I don't have to worry about it. So no, and anyone who's been evicted is just automatically disqualified. So it's
Okay.
just clean cut, things like that. You can put up like you need to have a minimum credit score. You need to like twice the rent has to be twice half of what your income is, if that makes sense. Let's say the rent's $1,000 a month, the person would have to at least make $2,000 or $2,500 a month in income to make sure. So however those numbers works, but something like that, you can create like kind of a set of guidelines of what you're
Okay.
looking for in a tenant too. Yeah.
Okay. So you said that sometimes people falsify information and things like that. What if after they've already started renting, you find out something. What are your rights? Like what can you do at that point?
It honestly depends state by state. Every
Okay.
state has different landlord tenant laws. So
Okay.
it depends if they're paying rent, if they're not. Like if they lied, but they're still paying rent on time, there's really not, unless they're breaking lease or something. And even then, it really depends state by state what actions you can take.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that real estate is still, if not the best way to make income and build your wealth, it's high up there.
Yeah.
Because we'll always need houses. Like there's always going to be a need for someplace to live. Always. You
Yeah.
can cut out all the other things, make everything virtual, not everything, but a lot of other things virtual. But when it comes to where to live, you need an actual place to live.
Yeah.
You can't live in the metaverse only. You have to have a
And
place to live. So I think that real estate is definitely a great way to build your wealth. And the other thing is, a lot of people, when they think about real estate, they think, oh, it's like you were saying in the beginning, it's so much money to get into it and all of that. So I like that you're sharing about house hacking and how it's not as difficult to get into, and you don't need huge sums of money. And also, as a occupant, an owner occupant, there are tons of programs out there for owner occupants. So I just love that you brought that out, because I think that a lot of times, even when I speak to my clients, it's like they think so huge, like it's beyond their reach. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I can't do that. Or, they live in, either, even if they're a homeowner, they think, they don't think that they could, rent out a part or anything. Like that's just not something they think about, or they think it's just way beyond what they're able to do. So I love that you shared all those details and kind of made it more attainable. So I love that. And that brings me to this other question. So who would be a good candidate for house hacking? Like what sort of personality would you need to have, or anything else that you want to share about that? Who would be a good candidate?
That's a good question. If you're not into real estate and you just want to invest in index funds and not go this route, then you're still going to be an like a owner. So if you don't want to deal with tenants and you really don't want to do with all the landlord type of things, then maybe house hacking or any real estate investing is not for you. But if you are someone who's interested and wants to try, but again, doesn't want to dive in all the way, because you can like almost practice with house hacking because you're there. So you can see how things work and what
Mm-hmm.
systems you want to create. So if you don't want your tenant calling you, for repairs, then you'll come up with a system really quickly on what to do. But at least you're there. So if something does break, you're on site. And I feel like people have this fear of, being a landlord from a distance, or not, being like, if something goes wrong, like, what are they going to do? It kind of mitigates a lot of the quote unquote risks,
Mm-hmm.
or, that people have when it comes to any type of investing, real estate investing.
Yes, I think that makes sense when you say systems and how necessary they are, and that you learn quick. Once you do something and you see how hard it is, or how much of your time you have to give up, then you quickly learn, oh, I need to put some systems in place, because without the systems, you're just going to be doing all the legwork, and it's going to be a drudgery for you. And I definitely preach that, try to outsource as many things as possible, try to have systems in place so that you're doing less of the thing, but you're building your wealth at the same time. So I love that you pointed that one out, because yeah, systems, I mean, you got to have systems. I remember hearing someone say, I could never be a landlord. I don't want to deal with people. I just don't have the patience. So that's why I asked you, like what sort of personality you think would be a good fit for house hacking, because is it for everybody? Maybe not.
No, like I said, if you don't, but then I would say real estate is, if you're not into real estate, don't house hack. But if you
Okay.
want to try to get into real estate, or you're intrigued by real estate, or you want a better way, or you want to get out of the rat race, but you're not sure where to start, but you want to a little bit, I don't want to say risky, but you want to like see what else is out there, then I think house hacking can definitely be for you. And if you have kids, I just would hate for someone to use kids as a reason or excuse not to do it.
Yes, I definitely see that. And I like going back to what you said a while ago about teaching your daughter about why you're doing it and all that stuff. I think that is amazing. I really applaud you for that, because I think the more we share with them at a younger age, the better it is for them. Because with children, they're creatures of habit. Well, we all are, right? But
Yeah.
things quickly become religion for for a child. We go out for ice cream 2 nights, and they're like, oh, we go out every night for ice cream. And so it's like a whole thing. So if at a young age we start teaching them financial principles, teaching them about house hacking or whatever it is that we're doing, it becomes a part of them, and then that's what they know. So
Yeah.
then next thing you know, they're like sharing it with other people and telling them, oh yeah, my parents do this and this is why you need to do it. Why aren't you doing it? You know, and you
Yeah.
just spread the good news. So I just love that you're doing that. And I'm a homeschooler, so I use every opportunity to teach my kids, like everything that I'm doing, sharing with them why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it. So I love that. And this was a really great talk. I mean, do you have any other advice that you'd like to share about house hacking that you can leave with our viewers, either how to get into it or anything that you want to share as advice?
Sure. I would say if anything I've said resonated or sparked something in you, I would say like get educated, go down the rabbit hole. There's so many resources on house hacking that are out there now. It's much more of a more common thing. But I would definitely say it's worth exploring and you should. And the other thing too, I would say is if this didn't inspire you or trigger any like inkling into you, then it's okay if it's not for you. Like don't feel also that you need to try every strategy for, you know, whatever your money journey is. Some things aren't for everyone. Like, that's why I really love the question you asked of who this is or isn't for, because I feel like so many times we get shiny object syndrome. So if this really isn't
True.
for you, then that's okay too. So just kind of go with what your gut's telling you. And if you are, then definitely it's, I would say it's definitely worth it to continue getting educated and exploring what your options are.
So I do have another question for you in terms of, again, going back to who's a good candidate for this. What type of income do you think a person needs to have in order to start this journey?
That's a really good question. So I would say the first step in this process is to talk to a lender,
Okay.
because it's going to depend on your credit score. It's going to depend on, there's so many variables also of what interest rate then that you would get, and then it'll determine on what your purchase price is. So step one is to get a good lender. And I would also say, or if not a lender, get a good real estate agent that could help
Okay.
connect you with a lender. So those are your two. You want to build a team, just like with anything. So your real estate agent and your lender are going to be your first core people to help you with this process. Once you start researching, you can ask them like, I want to buy a duplex. This is like the strategy we're looking. What kind of loan products do you have? For real estate agent, this is the strategy I'm looking at. Have you ever house hacked? Have you experienced with it? Do you have clients that house hack? Because you always want someone with experience in whatever you're doing.
Okay.
So that would be, that's a great question. That would be my recommendation to like really get started to find out how, like, I feel like what I talked about was very general. So for your specific is to really find your team and figure out what your options actually are.
Okay, so you do recommend actually telling the lender that you want to do house hacking, and let them know that that's what the strategy is that you want to use.
Yeah, because don't quote me on it, but I believe there's certain loan products that may factor in a rental income. So you might be able to afford a little bit more
Okay.
if you had rental coming in.
Okay, that sounds good. Because that's what I was thinking, that might change something somewhere,
Yeah.
in terms of like what type of loan you can get or special considerations and things like that. I know for just a general real estate investing, you can get like special loans for fixing up the property and things like that. So
Mhm.
I was just wondering. So
Yeah.
thank you
Well,
for sharing that.
there is a FHA 203K loan, which I love, which is what we use, which you can build your construction costs into the house. So you can still do like 5% down and get
Oh,
your construction costs rolled in this market. It's not as favorable because a lot of, well, as the market's turning, there is a little bit easier, but they're a longer process.
okay.
So if seller has a choice between someone conventional or an FHA 203K, they're going to probably go with the conventional. So from that standpoint, but the markets are turning a lot now and it's starting to slow. So people who are trying that option, it's getting back to. But again, talk to your lender. I'm not a lender, so that's my biggest advice, to get that squared away too first.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that because I did hear about that, the choice between the conventional and FHA. And it was crazy the other day with the home prices soaring, and it became a seller's market, and it was just crazy for people who
Yeah,
were trying to do FHA loans and things like that, just getting denied. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that because I think those are important things for people to know if they want to get into it, that there
yeah,
are these options out there. But it's good to know what your options are
yeah.
and not to be discouraged just because you may not have all your ducks lined up, but just figure out with your lender what you need and then go from there. So
I think you can do conventional with 5% down into a multifamily too. So I think that's still, you may not do 3.5, but you might be able to do 5. And the FHA 203K is really if a place needs work. So if it doesn't need work, you don't even need to go FHA. You could still go conventional. But
okay.
talk to your lender, and also it's going to depend at market by market of what sellers are accepting or more open to now. So that's another thing that's why you want a good agent who could help you with those. Like if you have a choice between conventional or FHA, it may not matter, it may matter, things like
Okay.
that. And the rate also might factor in. I don't know if there's a different rate between conventional and FHA also.
Okay, okay, that definitely makes sense. Thank you so much for that information. I think this has been awesome information that we're sharing out there because the more things that we could share and help people think outside of the box of how to build your wealth. Because I think a lot of people that I talk to, they're burnt out. They feel burnt out trying
Yeah.
to work so many jobs, trying to figure out how they're going to build their wealth, and they just can't seem to see their way through, even if they make great money. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
like they're paying so many bills and trying to figure out, okay, do I get another job? Do I get another business to try to meet the shortfall? So I feel like this is a great way to make money, but you're not working in it every day. You're basically providing a place for the people to stay. And obviously you're responsible if something, gets damaged to a certain extent, then you take care of it. But other than that, I mean, there's not a ton that you have to do, right?
It's like any real estate investing that you would do, but you're there, you're hands on.
Right.
So you'll create your own systems as you see fit. So if the hot water heater breaks, you know who to call. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like you start to figure all that out. But from a time standpoint, yeah. I mean, unless you're not getting paid or something breaks, there's not, the only time you're really working, quote unquote, is when you're trying to get the tenants in. And if you could hire an agent to do that. Like there's so many ways you could also outsource
Exactly.
things. Even if you're not making money house hacking, you're saving so much because right now mortgages are so high, either because people spend
Yes.
a ton of money, play catch up with the Joneses because the prices were so high in so many markets across the country, or now that rates are so much higher, the affordability of a single family home is just hard for people. So if you can get creative and think through and go in with a goal. Like when we found our second house hack, it took us like almost over a year to do it. It wasn't quick. Like we had very
Okay.
strict criteria. So it may not happen overnight, but do it while, it doesn't matter really what age your kids are unless I mean, even the only thing I will say, if you had older kids, you may want, depending on how you're zoned, like different school districts, if that's an important factor, then your inventory might just be a lot less. It still can't hurt to look, and keep your options open.
So when you do house hacking, how long do you have to stay in the home?
It depends on, usually it's a year by the loan, like
Okay.
the lender. So that's the
Okay.
other thing too. Like even if you did something, like I think anyone can do anything for a year. So let's say you were living in a single family and you have your kids, you theoretically could rent out your primary home for a year, house
Mhm.
hack for a year, and then move back in.
Right.
So like if you really wanted, and that, again, that's not for everyone, but if you really wanted a way to generate wealth and figure something out and just set yourself up, this is a great strategy to do it. So, but it depends on what you're willing to do. And I don't want to use the word sacrifice, but you are going to have to sacrifice something for your family in that scenario. But if you're can find like another great house and you move in and maybe you sell your house and use that to buy the next one or something, like whatever makes sense for you and your family, and you have to get on the same page with your partner if you're in a relationship. But yeah, it can be great. It can really be great.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you too long, but this was really great. Thank you so much. Can you please share with my viewers, Jen, how they can find you?
Sure, we can find the Investor Mama podcast on all major platforms, Apple, Spotify, all that. And if I would love to hear from you, so feel free to go to investormama.com/connect. You can find all my social media handles and stuff and my email. If you have any questions or you're thinking about it but want more details or whatever, please reach out. I love connecting and talking about this. So yeah, don't hesitate to just go to investormama.com/connect.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. We really appreciate having you here. And I hope you come back. I hope we can come back and talk about
Yeah.
another topic because, you talk to moms, I talk to moms. So I'm sure we have a lot of things in common that we could just discuss. So thank
Yeah.
you
And you're
again.
gonna be I should plug you're gonna be you're on my podcast too. So I'm very
That's
excited for
right.
you to that's gonna be coming out in a couple weeks, I believe.
Okay,
I honestly can't remember, but yeah, which is a great episode. So yeah, and your listeners
awesome.
can
That was fun.
check.
It was fun to speak with you on your podcast. So I'm looking forward to that coming out too. And then my viewers, I'll share it with my viewers and they can
Yeah.
head over to the podcast and listen. So
Yeah. Ruth,
that's
thank you
going to be
so
great.
much for having me on. This has been really fun.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed Jen's talk today. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it, learned a lot of things, and I hope that it was very informative for you too. Please go ahead and like this video and leave a comment. What was your favorite part? What did you like the most? Since you made it to the end and you're still here, I'll tell you about my program, what I offer. I help high achieving moms that want to manage their money better so that they can build wealth and leave a legacy for their children. I've talked about this before in a previous video that I have an application link in the description. So if you believe that my program is a good fit for you and you would like to discuss that, I do offer some free calls. And if you qualify, then we'll meet together. In my program, women uncover their money story, which has shaped their money mindset. They can see how it has prevented them from building their wealth, kept them stuck in the paycheck to paycheck cycle, stopped them from spending quality time with their loved ones, and robbed them of the freedom of living where and how they want to live. Following the techniques that I teach them, they change their money mindset to a wealth building money mindset and construct a roadmap to wealth, which is their personal path to building their wealth. It contains powerful financial techniques and strategies that will enable to do things like purchasing a home or faster home payoff, acquiring the money to invest, having time freedom, and constructing a retirement plan that matches their desired lifestyle. They also obtain the resources necessary to leave a legacy for their children, such as creating a trust. Like I said before, if this sounds like something that you'd be interested in, fill out the application in the description box to get a free session so we can sit together and go over your goals and see whether or not we'd be a good fit to work together. Thank you so much for watching this. Please, again, go ahead and check out Jen's information. It will be in the description box also. And remember, change your mind, change your pocketbook. Goodbye now.